Auntie Thelma is going to tell us about Ottery Road Methodist. I know that the school is 168 years old. Am I correct, Auntie Thelma? Quite possibly, but Auntie Thelma will speak to us. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is indeed a privilege for me to be giving a bit of history of the Methodist Church in Wynberg, focusing mainly on the Ottery Road Methodist Church, of which I am a member. The Methodist Church was started by John and Charles Wesley in Britain, and the Methodist Church in the Wynberg area first started up on the hill, which would be where the Wynberg military base is when the British arrived. Unfortunately, after a few years, racism raised its ugly head, and a plot of land was purchased for the coloured community, which became the site of the present Ottery Road Methodist Church. The church was built in 1829 and was a wood and iron building which was housed where the school toilets are today. A small thatched roof clay building was then erected where the present church is situated. By 1900, the members had become too many for the small church, and a meeting was called under the chairmanship of Reverend Andrew Graham to discuss the building of a new church. It was estimated that a sum of £600 would be required, and Reverend Graham promised that if the congregation could raise £400, the parent church would donate the balance of £200. The congregation was given 1 year in which to raise the funds, and they did so in 9 months. The sum was raised from only a few members through three meetings under Mrs. Christina Wagner, Mrs. Diana Wagner, Mrs. Sarah Ludovic, Mrs. Rubius, and Miss Katie Dreyer, then aged only 11 years old. The church was built by the Thebus family, which incidentally is my great-grandfather and makes me the 4th generation of the family belonging to the Ottery Road Methodist Church. The church was built at a very nominal cost, assisted by public-spirited laymen of the church, and I understand that my great-grandfather even got his girls to cart bricks for him in wheelbarrows. The building was completed in 1903, which makes the present church 119 years old. There was not a dedicated minister at the time, and members were dependent on the services of local preachers who included Messieurs Munich, Eastman, Hankins, Duncan Taylor, MacDonald, Janice, and Sigla. The first organist of the church was Millie Schiller, who was succeeded by Katie Dreyer, then only 13 years old, who continued as the church organist for 23 years. Auntie Clarice Folser, nee Delfort, also served the church as organist for many years. The foundation stone of the building, presently being occupied by the Ottery Road Methodist School, one of the oldest schools in Wynberg, was laid on the 4th of April, 1925 by Mr. William Hoskin, which makes that building 97 years old. That was the building which was used as a hall by the church in earlier years. The Ottery Road Methodist Church is a family church, and that is why the members are so passionate about the church. Many of the current members, parents and grandparents were members of the church. I think of such families as Volskert, Roel, Phyllis, Koch, Thebus, Hendrikse, Hadskins, Shangley, and Pearson, many whose families still worship at Ottery Road today. Many of those families, although they no longer live in Wynberg, still travel to church on Sundays. Some travel from as far as Mitchell's Plain, Woortesig, Pinelands, Milnerton, and Thornton. We have many members who are over 80 years and who still attend the church regularly. The church has 3 services on a Sunday, 7 a.m., 9 a.m., and 11 a.m., which is a Causa service. And prior to COVID, we even had a service at 1:30 for the French-speaking community. A few years ago, when many families were displaced due to xenophobic attacks, the church opened its doors and provided accommodation for them. A little bit of history about one of the prominent organizations, the Women's Association. In 1939, a small band of 16 women, members of the Ottery Road Methodist Church, formed a prayer group under the leadership of Mrs. Lydia Creed, wife of the superintendent minister at that time. The group met regularly on a weekly basis for prayer and Bible study. It was this group that became the roots of the Women's Association, which is commonly known as the WA. Members of the group were Josephine Bailey, Dorothy Seister Breedeveld, Johanna Hendrickse, Minnie Herbert, Martha Jacobs, Maud Johnson, Maud Kleinchies, mother of the well-known sports writer, the late Lenny Kleinchies, Maggie Koff, Sophia Lowe, who with her husband ran a general store on the corner of Bats and Goran Road for many years. Other members were Amy Peterson, Annie Peterson, Doreen Shoulder, Winifred Schultz, Hester van der Horn, and Iona Watson. Many of the churches of the then Deep River and Kenilworth Circuit held prayer groups. In 1948, as a result of these meetings, a formal organization, namely the Women's Association, was established. To date, this organization is still very active at Ottery Road. An important development in the history of the Women's Association in the Ottery Road Society was the formation of the Women's Fellowship in 1979 during the superintendency of Reverend David Thomas. Younger women of the society were hesitant to join the Women's Association as the age group was 60 plus. And on the initiative of Mrs. Eileen Thomas, the wife of the then minister, Reverend David Thomas, the Women's Fellowship was formed as a group for younger women. Reverend Isaac Durham was responsible for the Ottery Road Fellowship, becoming affiliated to the Cape District of the Women's Association. The church choir, another of our church units, which also started plus minus 90 years ago. And at that stage, we had an evening service at 7 o'clock in the evening, and at which service they sang. Choir masters were amongst them, others were Mr. Ernie Hendrickse and Mr. Ron Thebus. The church choir is still going strong today, and they now render their services at the 7 a.m. service. The Sunday school also started about 90 years ago. The highlight of the Sunday school was the annual Sunday school anniversary. Many of the able-bodied men of the church erected the stage in the church, the girls looking very smart on the day in their white dresses with red ribbons, and the boys in their white shirts with red ties and grey pants. The Sunday school also enjoyed the annual picnic. Amongst the superintendents of the Sunday school was Mr. James Thebus, Mr. James Parker Sr., father of Mr. Dick Parker, who at the age of 96 is the oldest member of the church. Other superintendents were Mr. James Phillips, Mr. George van der Westhuizen, Mr. Milsert Kuhn, and the Sunday school underwent a name change and is today known as the Children's Church. Some of the other activities of the church is our senior lunches, spiritual development programs, run by the church, such as Alpha and Disciple course. We also entertain our folk regularly, and they have senior teas and lunches for the seniors. The Garden of Remembrance was also established, where members can have the ashes of their loved ones interred. There are many occasions, celebrations that we have. One is the All Saints Day, which is a day when folk can come. It's an annual event, and they come and remember members that have passed during the past year, and members of the family are encouraged to bring flowers or a plant in memory of their loved ones. The Ottery Road Methodist Church underwent many renovations over the years. Plus minus 15 to 20 years ago, the church wanted to have the windows replaced. And once again, members came to the fore. Families got together and donated 1,000 rand per window, and so we were able to replace the windows. The major renovations undertaken by the church was the building of a new hall, which was completed in 1995 and was dedicated on the 12th of August 1995 by Bishop James Gribble. After that, the building of the foyer linking the hall and the church was undertaken and completed on 11 November 2012 and opened by Bishop Michelle Hansrod. The foyer was dedicated to the memory of Reverend Tom Archulus, who faithfully served the church for 20 plus years. When it was decided to build a new hall and foyer, the members were once again approached. Some members donated money to the church, others loaned money to the church via a debenture scheme, and thus we were able to undertake the building project without taking a loan from an outside institution. All parties who donated via the debenture scheme were refunded in full. The roof of the church was recently replaced during August and September without us once again having to take a loan. Some of the members who served the Ottery Road Methodist Church were amongst Reverend Creed, Reverend Alan Winpenny, Reverend Tom Archulus, Reverend Isaac Deerham, Reverend Graham Huxtable, Reverend Jenny Samdan, Reverend Brian Wilkinson, Reverend Walton, Reverend David Thomas, Reverend Vincent Harry, and our current minister is Reverend Seneri Nkumbeni. Some of the units of the church are a very active praise and worship group, which leads the worship at our 9 o'clock service, our 9 a.m. service, children's church, Bible study, and church choir, and of course the WA. The Ottery Road Methodist Church has also started new mission outreach programs, such as Serving Saturday, a project where members of our mission group get together to cook and pack meals for the homeless. They also provide sandwiches on a Monday and Friday for learners at the Ottery Road Methodist School. Another project is our flower ministry, whereby the flowers donated to the church on a Sunday is taken to our senior members or those who are ill. The Friendship Club, another of our units, where mostly single women get together once a month. We have also started our own vegetable garden. In an effort to keep up with the changing technology, we now also have our 9 a.m. service live streamed. As our church history literally went up in smoke, I trust that I've done justice to remembering the Ottery Road Methodist Church here today. I thank you.
Don't go, Auntie Thelma. We would like to thank Auntie Thelma for bringing us the history and so beautifully and detailed. Thank you so much. I'm sure the school would also like to have a part and knowledge of that. We have a new principal there at the school, Ottery Road Methodist, Miss Holly, beautiful, beautiful lady, and she's willing to share. please send her our regards. Thank you. And then we're having a gift handed over to you for the valuable contribution to Wynberg, to the Wynberg East, from the Wynberg East Civic Association. Thank you so very much. Thank you. Another round of applause for Auntie Thelma. Thank you so much for coming along.